Hey everyone, I'm Craig Connors, VP and GM for the SASE business at VMware, and I'm here to talk to you today about the new VMware SD-WAN client for better remote access. Quick high-level overview, SD-WAN client is here to deliver a simple, easy-to-use, highly secure remote access experience for your users, including advanced features like zero trust network access, user experience optimizations, AI ops integrated with our VMware Edge Network Intelligence platform, and the ability to run on any operating system, Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, or Android. So let's dive into the problem space that led us to develop and launch the SD-WAN client, and how did this all come about? Of course, everyone knows that remote access has been a problem for a long time. We've used remote access VPN to solve connectivity problems for remote employees for years now. And recently, in part due to the greater shift to remote work with the COVID-19 pandemic, and also due to advancements in security technology, we've seen an evolution start to happen where VPNs for remote access have been replaced with zero trust network access clients. But what we've also seen is that evolution really focused on that security angle. Of course, very important to move from a network-based VPN, where once a user's connected, they have access to all the resources in my network, to a type of zero trust network access that is per app, that has user identity awareness, and that really adheres to those principles like least privilege, where a user can only access the things that they need to access and can't access the rest of the network that they don't need to access. And ZTNA was great at solving that problem. But that's not the only problem that we had with the traditional remote access VPNs, right? If we think about SD-WAN, and we think about the branch office and the challenges that SD-WAN set out to solve in the branch office, there was things like network complexity. How do I simplify the network connectivity for my users? How do I optimize poor quality connectivity in the last mile? How do I make sure that I'm applying a consistent security policy regardless of whether the user is in one location or another location? How do I get visibility into what the user is doing so that I know when something's going wrong, what is the reason it's going wrong? And how do I push policy changes at scale to all of those users? Well, as we think about the new world of the hybrid and remote workforce, where folks are working from home, I'm here in my house in Nashville, Tennessee, obviously not sitting in an office anymore. All of those challenges that SD-WAN solved for the branch office, like I said, they didn't go away. They actually got amplified, because now I have, instead of potentially tens or hundreds of offices, I have thousands or tens of thousands of users. And it's almost like having tens of thousands of offices out there. And so what we wanted to do is provide a remote access optimization service that could be run on mobile devices, that could be run on laptops, so that anywhere you were working, you'd be able to get the benefits of SD-WAN even on your smartphone or your laptop. So what does that mean? That means that we're bringing the principles of ZTNA and the principles of SD-WAN together into a client that runs on any device and allows you to connect and secure your users, but also provide those other values on top. First and foremost, of course, is uncompromised security, right? We talked about the need for building on top of zero trust principles. Every company in the world is in the midst of this evolutionary journey towards zero trust. And in a lot of cases, it starts with zero trust network access. So for a remote user, how do I identify who that user is? How do I identify what groups they belong to? What applications they need to access? If I have an engineer and I have a salesperson, obviously they have a very different set of applications and criteria that they need to access. So first, building this user identity mechanism so that we know exactly who the user is. Second, mapping them to an application or a group of applications so we know exactly what they're allowed to access. Third, making sure that the device that they're connecting from meets the minimum set of requirements that we have set out. This could be, it has to be a corporate managed device with MDM and EDR, and adheres to my corporate standard. It could be, it's a BYOD device, but I want to make sure that it's running the latest version of Windows, that the firewall's turned on, that the antivirus is installed. So doing some assessment of the underlying ecosystem that's powering that either smartphone or laptop. And then encrypting that, we use DTLS tunnel to encrypt it end to end from the user all the way to the destination. So now I've made sure that I have an uncompromised security approach that's going to make sure that I have the right person using the right kind of device, accessing the right applications in a secure way. That's great, but that's just the start. What's next? Well, we want to make sure that the user experience is good, right? This is one of the biggest things that SD-WAN, especially VMware SD-WAN, set out to deliver on. And we do this in a couple different ways with the SD-WAN client. The first is, how do I reach the destination that I'm trying to reach in the most optimal way? To do that, what we have done is delivered through our network of VMware SD-WAN edges and gateways that we deploy around the world, a network of what we call relays that we use to connect users and the applications that they're trying to reach. You may be able to reach directly from your client to the application. Let's say I'm sitting in the data center. Maybe it's as simple as a direct connection. Maybe I'm on the other side of the world. A direct connection may not be the best approach. I want to get to the closest SD-WAN gateway, and from there, leverage a high quality connectivity that the gateway provides to transit to another gateway or all the way to the destination to make sure I reach the destination in the most optimal way. We do this not dissimilar to the SD-WAN approach we're used to in the branch offices, by continually measuring the network connectivity quality between the client, the relay and other relays, and the connectors sitting in front of your applications. And then we use machine learning to determine the optimal path for each connection to reach in the most optimal reduced latency way. The second thing that we do is we layer on some of the techniques that we deliver as part of our dynamic multipath optimization within SD-WAN. Of course, we can't do everything in a smartphone that you can do in a branch router, but we can do things like enable forward error correction to ensure that your Zoom video is high quality, even though you're accessing it from a coffee shop Wi-Fi on your smartphone and you're not able to sit behind high quality connectivity. So both of these ensure that there's a high quality user experience for the end user. But we also want a good high quality experience for the administrator of the network as well. People spend a lot of time administering these remote access solutions. And one thing I like to point out is when we went to this new model of working where everyone went from being in the office to being flexible or being remote, I don't know about your company, but my company didn't greatly expand the size of our IT team. So we're asking the same network or IT engineers to support the same users, but to do it across a vast majority of places. And so we want to make sure that it's simple for them to use. And now we do this in a couple different ways. The first is the SD-WAN orchestrator that users of our current SD-WAN solution are used to. Right alongside your SD-WAN edges, you find your SD-WAN clients sitting in the same single pane of glass. The same mechanism that you're used to in terms of policy-based and profile-based management. So I can push changes that affect a user. I can push changes that affect a whole group of users or all of my users at once. We enable that same operational simplicity for the network administrator that you have on the SD-WAN branch solution. Second piece is we give you visibility into what's happening. Some of the things that I want to know about my end client. What does the Wi-Fi connectivity look like? What is my DNS response time? What is my DHCP response time? If I'm using 802.1x, what does the radius response time look? My core application servers, what's the latency look like to those services? So we gather all that information from the client itself, and we aggregate it to provide you a view of not only what is an individual user's experience, but also, again, using our Edge Network Intelligence AIOps solution, proactively identify issues that might be affecting your remote workforce. Perhaps there's an application that's having a problem. Perhaps there's a network peering issue that's affecting a portion of the world that's having a problem. Perhaps it's just that coffee shop Wi-Fi that I talked about that's not high enough quality. Well, today when the user calls in, all the user knows is I can't reach my application. And in many cases, our help desk staff has no idea what the first step is to start troubleshooting that problem. Now you have all this information at your fingertips to know, is it a Wi-Fi problem? Is it a DNS problem? Is it a DHCP problem? Is it a radius problem? Is it an application problem? Is it just affecting you? Is it affecting all the users in your area or all the users affecting that application? That tremendous level of operational visibility enables the team to work with agility to identify and solve problems for our remote workforce with the information right at our fingertips. Also, the solution's built for mobility. We have inevitably a plethora of devices that we run in our corporate networks. We have devices that are Android, we have devices that are iOS, we have Macs, we have Windows, we have Linux servers running applications. There's really no way to predict what type of device I'm going to need to deploy. And so we need to make sure that the solution supports all of those major OSs. And that's one of the things that this SD-WAN client provides. And then it has to be easy to deploy, right? One of the things that's always a challenge when I have thousands or tens of thousands of devices to enable is how do I push the application out to those devices? So for mobile devices, you'll be able to download it from the App Store. For devices that are, PCs and laptops, you can either download it from a provided location that the company provides, or using your mobile device management software, actually push this, for instance, Workspace ONE, push the SD-WAN client direct down to all the devices and automatically have it set up and ready for your users to use. So the client has now transformed the way that I do security from VPN to build on those zero trust principles and start my zero trust journey, the zero trust network access. It has improved my user experience for both my end users with optimized path selection and error correction, as well as my administrators with that visibility and automation and configuration at scale that allows me to easily make configuration changes, identify problems, things like that. It's allowed me to use this on any type of device that I'm running in my network and to deploy it simply to all of those devices. Obviously, a huge plethora of benefits that we're able to deliver. So let's talk about some of the use cases that we have that we can use to deploy this SD-WAN client. First, an obvious one is VPN replacement. So we'll throw up an image from the blog of VPN replacement with the VMware SD-WAN client. And you can see that, traditional users who are using remote access VPN to access applications, well, there's a couple advantages that the SD-WAN client brings. Obviously, you can see on the left the network and path optimization that we already talked about. Those relays that I mentioned, they're running in our worldwide POP infrastructure, less than 10 milliseconds of latency from 80% of the population of the world, less than 5 milliseconds from all major CSPs. That means it's not just optimized access for reaching an app in my data center, but an optimized access for reaching Azure, for reaching AWS, for reaching any SaaS application that the user needs to reach. Oh, and by the way, because we're concerned about security and it's passing through that VMware SASE POP, it can reach those applications passing through VMware's Cloud Web Security Stack. And so you can actually layer security in line on the way to the destination. I want my user to be able to access Office 365, but I want to make sure I'm applying CASB because I want to do data loss prevention on the user no matter where they are in the world. Well, that happens automatically. It automatically picks the closest SASE POP. It can automatically route through our Cloud Web Security solution, providing that DLP, and then route you in an optimized path directly to Office 365. Another thing that we want to be able to do is to make sure that we can access our corporate applications that are running in the data center. So two different approaches here. One, of course, is to enter into the SD-WAN fabric that's running if you're running VMware SD-WAN. So potentially, the client terminates at the gateway, enters the SD-WAN network, and it gets that same optimization using DMPO all the way to the data center. The other option is to deploy what we call a connector in front of your application in the data center. The great thing about the connector is the connector reaches out outbound to the same set of relays that are running in the cloud as the clients do. And because the relay is being reached by both the client and the connector sitting in front of the application, there's no need to worry about punching a hole in the NAT or any type of configuration at your network. No need to open an inbound hole. No need to create any security vulnerability in your network. No need to worry about what ports or protocols. All you have to do is deploy the connector, deploy the client. They both reach outbound. We will try to use UDP hole punching to establish a direct connection if it makes sense, but it's not necessary. Oh, and by the way, we also build both UDP and TCP tunnels so that just in case your NAT or firewall is having an issue with one protocol or the other, we'll be able to connect through any type of firewall, any type of NAT, anywhere, again, without any configuration. So add all of that on top of all of the benefits I talked before, and you have a tremendous amount of value that you're layering on top of a traditional VPN solution. You're getting ZTNA, you're getting user experience, you're getting simplified insertion, and you're getting to take advantage of this worldwide footprint of VMware SASE POPs. Second use case, branch-to-branch private access. So, there's also, in addition to the need for users to access applications within your company, is for a company to access applications that are hosted by a partner. So what if I have users that are connecting to resources in my data center or in my infrastructure as a service like Azure or AWS? But in order for those applications to function, they need to access something that's running in the cloud hosted by a partner. Well, the same approach fits here. You can have the partner deploy that connector inside their infrastructure. And again, without them having to do any configuration, without having to do what we do today, which is, hey, can you build an IPsec tunnel from my data center to Oracle because the users are accessing my data center, but the Oracle database is actually sitting in Oracle Cloud. And now I have an IPsec tunnel that I have to stand up and manage and monitor. That can all go away. And you can do it in a seamless zero trust fashion by using the connector running in the partner's cloud and the connector running in your data center, automatically forging that direct connection to each other. Not only does this eliminate the need to build or maintain any type of tunnel or overlay between you and the partner, but again, it's bringing those principles of zero trust in. It's bringing user identity in. It means you can shut off a single user, a single application, a group of users at any time with one click without having to worry about, well, what does this traffic look like when it's traversing my IPsec tunnel? What is the IP address of the user I want to block? Or what is the port number of the application I want to turn off? This is all user identity and application aware. Greatly simplifies these types of connectivities. So, with that, I think we've done a great job highlighting some of the key things that we want to talk about today, the challenges that exist in a legacy remote access solution, the network complexity, the inefficiency, insufficient security for those users, the fact that we're always dealing with poor network connectivity. And when you're on the road, in the airport, in the coffee shop, in the hotel, that's a problem that gets amplified. The inconsistent user access, whether I'm identifying a user as an IP address, whether I'm identifying a user as a user, and then the operational complexities and the expense of day two operations for those things. We've layered on the benefits of the uncompromised security built on those zero trust principles, the improved user experience, the simplified operations, including our AI Ops solution from Edge Network Intelligence. We're installing it across any type of client, in an easy to deploy fashion. And we're using that to replace VPN, branch to branch private access, and solve all of our remote access problems in one solution. Finally, I'll leave you with this, which is, what about the user that's not just remote? The user that's sometimes remote and sometimes working in the office. One of the big challenges we have today is, how do I deliver a consistent security and application access policy for that user, regardless of where they sit? I want to make sure that Stephanie that works in sales has the same level of access and security the days that she's in the office and the days that she's on the road visiting customers and traveling. Well, we do that because the SD-WAN client and the SD-WAN edge, as I mentioned, are being fully integrated. So that means when she's on the road, she's accessing the nearest relay that's running in the SD-WAN gateway and then accessing her application from there with security intrinsically linked in, or whatever requirements are laid out in the policy configuration you set out. But the next thing that we're building on top of that is, when she goes into the office, that edge device, that SD-WAN edge device from VMware, if you've got that deployed in your office, now instead of connecting to a relay in the cloud, she can connect to the relay that's running directly on the edge device. You get that same user identity, you get that same policy application, you get the benefits of VMware's DMPO as you access the WAN, and now you get the best of both worlds. A common user identity, visibility, and policy model, regardless of whether the user's in the office or out of the office, and the best of both worlds, the optimized path selection and error correction that the client inherently provides when you're out of the office, and a seamless switch over to dynamic multipath optimization when you are in the office. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me. I don't see any questions in the chat, although I'd be happy to answer some. So feel free to reach out. You can check us out at sassy.vmware.com. You can find me on Twitter @egregious. Feel free to ask any questions. We'll be happy to handle them and answer your questions about the VMware SD-WAN client. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.